Welcome to the With Winning in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, along with my co-host, Troy Bassham. And today what we're doing is we're answering questions submitted by our viewers. So if you have a question you would like for us to answer in the future, go ahead and send me an email, heather@mentalmanagement.com. Today we tackle some questions about the journal, really how to dive into that and make it more effective for you. Troy tackles a couple of questions about Attainment, his book, and how to make those things a little bit more, beneficial for the reader. And we hope that you gain some value from it. So enjoy. Awesome. Troy, are you ready to answer questions from our listeners?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Shoot us some questions there, Lucas.
All right. So this comes from Troy's book, Attainment. One of the principles is that elite performers work on all three areas of performance. Others focus only on their subconscious ability. So how do I get out of my own head to start working on my conscious and on my self-image?
So, Heather, you want to answer that for us?
It was completely directed to you.
So the point I'm making in that section of the book is that most people, when they're training solely on making skill better, but they don't focus on the other two parts that make up performance. So if you're training and you're practicing and you're focusing solely on getting better skill-wise, and you get better in the skill, which means I'm getting better and having more success, does that mean you're actually able to handle the success? So if my self-image isn't, it's like me to be this good, then your confidence level is going to lag your skill level. And if you don't know how to handle certain situations mentally, then you can consciously get in the way of your ability to perform well in competition. So the way to start getting them balanced, which is I think where the question's going, is you have to first understand the performance model, and then you have to look at it and say, okay, as I progress in skill, the better I get skill, the less I have to think about what I'm doing. The less I have to think about doing, the more likely I'm going to get my own way, my own thoughts. So I must start focusing on running a mental process.
The less I have to think about what I'm doing, the more I get in my way.
Yes. The less you have to focus on what you're doing, because what is subconscious skill? Your ability to do something so well that you don't have to think about it.
Right.
So I no longer have to think about walking. I just walk.
So
right?
when I don't have to think anymore, then the thoughts are creeping in
I can think
externally.
About
and then you're giving yourself all kinds of choices.
Yes.
Oh, I totally get it. Keep going.
So if I'm a let's say a batter and I'm really good, I don't have to think about the mechanics. I can just hit the ball. Well, now I'm free to think about stuff. So now I might get distracted by, a fan. I might just get distracted about the situation I'm in. Like I have to make this happen. Like bases are loaded. You're down by 3. You're the guy. You lead the league in home runs. You walk up there. You hit a grand slam. You win the game. What do? They try to hit a grand slam. They're probably thinking about it. Otherwise, normally they would just get up there and just bat.
Well, if they lead the league in home runs, then it's like them to hit a home run. But if they're thinking about having to hit that home run, I see what you're saying.
Which now I'm in that situation. I'm starting to think about the situation I'm in while I'm in the batter's box. Well, that probably isn't what you were thinking about all these other times you were in the batter's box that made you successful to be what?
The best at home runs.
Yeah. And so you change that thought process, you then potentially change the outcome. And usually it's not into your advantage because you want the subconscious ability to take over, but you don't want to get in the way of it.
Right.
So you have to develop a mental process in order to do that. In conjunction with that, you need to build the self-image that is like me to play well on a consistent basis. So and how do you do that? You do that by imprinting. So if I'm imprinting that I'm going to get a hit, I'm more likely promoting that I'm going to get hits. If I'm imprinting that I'm going to strike out, promoting more likely I'm going to strike out. Take that with anything that you do in life, you're looking that way. So if I complain a lot about not having any money, I'm probably going to be really good about putting myself in a situation where I have no money.
Yeah, you've decided you're broke.
Yeah. But if I talked about how to save and earn more money, I might put myself in a situation to where, now I have opportunity to come. So take somebody who's struggling with, I don't have any money. Their boss comes to them and say, hey, we need people to work on Saturday. Will you work on Saturday? You're going to get paid overtime. No, I really don't want to work Saturday. Weekends are my time. Well, that's why that guy has no money, because he's not taking advantage of the situation. When another person is looking at ways and opportunity, when it comes to them, what do you think they're going to say? They're going to jump at that chance. Mm-hmm. They say, well, how long do you need me to work on Saturday? I'm there. And they say, I just need 4 hours. I'll take the 4. They're not looking at it as in, I want my weekend. They're looking at, I have that. Well, because they've set the self-image as like me to take advantage of situations that are benefiting me financially where another one isn't. It just means the priorities are different. Well, if you want to change that, take the person who's not taking advantage of their situation financially. They're using it for other things. No, personal time is more important, but I have no money. Well, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to change you. And how are you going to change it? You have to change when you're imprinting the self-image so the self-image can start changing, and then you become the individual that takes advantage of those situations when other people aren't. But we don't want to change. We like who we are.
Self-image doesn't like to change.
So simply put, you have to work on all 3 areas in order to progress in whatever you do.
Next question. This one comes from one of our YouTube subscribers. I found that most people don't like to talk about success and they don't want to hear about my success. So how do I discover how it is that I can continue to build good friends and people around me while getting a good image or getting a good imprint on my self-image and not sound cocky?
Wow, you probably have a lot of that with your clientele, I bet.
Well, my first thought was you don't have to brag about your successes to other people in order to build your self-image. So that's not the only way to gain a strong self-image. I think you shouldn't downplay success. I don't think you should walk away from a conversation if someone is trying to build you up and telling you that you're doing a good job and they're so excited for you and they just look up to you and they admire you for XYZ reason. Then you should take in all of those imprints as positive and say, thank you so much. I'm so glad you see that in me. But I don't think you have to brag on your success out loud. I do think you should be journaling your successes. I think you should be keeping a performance analysis journal. We've talked about it several times, and it's an opportunity for you to write in detail about the successes that you do have. So you can brag on paper to yourself. You can also take in the compliments from others. That helps to build your self-image. You can also compliment other people, and that helps to build your self-image as well. So those are some ways that you can build your self-image without having to feel like you're bragging on yourself.
Yeah, if you're worried about that, then just keep this in mind. Be interested, not interesting. Mm-hmm. That was one thing that our dad would say a lot is when people come to you and they want to talk to you, and you're successful in your area, be interested in them, not try to be interesting because then it's a big turnoff. Mm-hmm. And when they start talking to you, there's opportunity to build you up, but in a more genuine, organic way. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that a lot of people kind of struggle with because the old saying is it's lonely at the top. And I think one of the reasons is because when you're that good, it's harder to relate to people that aren't as good as you. And one of the ways to be able to have more friends and be cordial and enjoy it is, okay, I'm going to be interested in you. Mm-hmm. Because at one point, weren't you there? Yeah. So then they see interest in there. And now when they ask you a question and you're able to expand on you, it doesn't come across as being bragging. It comes across as being more of a mentor type opportunity.
I like mentorship. I think that's a really good point to make. When you've made it, when you've been successful, find someone that you can help to lead along the way. I think that's a good point.
You guys have talked a lot about the performance analysis journal. I decided to get one, and I'm struggling a little bit with 2 areas. First is my percentage of time that I ran my mental system and my technical system correctly. How strictly should I be keeping up with that? And is it a percentage of feel? And then the second is, can you help me to come up with a way to formulate my what I learned today and what I did well today statements, because I have a little trouble getting started with those.
So I'll do the first one. You want to tackle the second one?
Sure. I'm glad you're doing the first one.
The first one is what percentage of mental and technical did I run well? That's specifically talking about competition. So if you're competing, you're writing down at the end of the day, at the end of the event, you want to sit there and say, okay, how well did I run my mental system? How well did I run my technical system? So let's say we're talking about a golfer. We'll use a golfer as an example. They're playing a round of golf. At the end of the round, how well did you run your technical process? There are times where you could technically execute a shot really well, but you don't actually hit the result you want. You don't get the result you want. You executed what you wanted, but you didn't get the result desired. Not because technically you had an issue, is because I chose maybe the wrong club. Maybe I made a strategic error, but technically it was successful. So let's say that I picked a 7-iron instead of an 8-iron. An 8-iron would have worked out perfect. Well, then I don't want to downgrade how well I executed that shot. So technically I'm performing at a high level. On the mental side of it, how well did you run your mental process well? That means how well did you preload, run a mental program? How well did you reload that particular shot? Meaning, how well did you do it correctly? So we're all human beings. We're competing. Most of us that are watching this channel are probably competitive at a high level. And so even though you're proficient at what you do, we're flawed as human beings. So it's not going to be 100%. But if you look at the guys that are really, really good, they tend to make less errors than the other competitors. So what if you're running your mental process 90%? So let's just say you ran your mental system 90%. Technically, you were proficient 90%. What do you think the result is going to be for that individual?
Good.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. The only exception would be if there's, like in golf, you have course management. You're making decisions that affect those two areas. We would classify that being separate because in other sports, you don't have course management. Like in air rifle shooting, there's not course management. It's the same object every single time. So if my technical mental process is graded high, I don't need to focus on the score. I already know it's going to be good. We want people to focus more on the technical mental side because that's what you're going to use to impact your training plan for the next event. You know, that time period between this event and the next one. You can look at what am I technically doing, what am I mentally doing, how am I going to adjust that in my training plan moving forward. We don't want to get caught up too much in the actual results. A lot of athletes get caught up in the results, and therefore they don't actually set up a training plan so they can make better progress in the next competition. They simply look and say, well, this wasn't good. I'm going to try to fix it. And that might have gotten better, but they sacrificed this other areas that were good. Now that's not as good, even though this area is good, and then they get pretty much a similar result in the next competition. If we focus on these two things, it helps with that preparation leading into the next event. So use that for competition, or if you're doing like simulation tournaments or simulation events or competitions, that you'd fill it in. On regular training days, those two areas would be blank.
Really?
Yep. Because if you're training, sometimes you're going to train and you're not running your mental process. You're focused specifically on a technical aspect. So if we stick with golf, a lot of golfers will have drills, skills and drills, training aids. They're working solely on getting a feel technically. And so I'm not going to necessarily be running a mental program during that drill the whole time. Now there's other parts where they might be running the mental program, but now they're training the process, maybe not focusing on technical, but it's working on a skill set. I'm putting that aside when I'm actually on the course playing a round of golf. Like it's a turnaround. Now I want to focus how well am I executing when I'm training in those two areas. That's when it's important.
The second part of that question is that I'm having trouble filling out the what I learned today and what I did well today sections of the performance analysis journal. Is there a prompt that I can use to help get me going?
Well, what I learned today would be if you received any corrections from a coach, would definitely go there. I like to look at some of my sports that I work in, like gymnastics or something like that. A lot of times these athletes don't keep a journal. And so their coach will give them corrections or things that they need to work on, and then they don't ever write them down. And if you don't write them down, then you don't know what you need. You don't remember the next day, and then the coach has to repeat themselves. And so to me, if you're taking that journal and you're utilizing it to record, that's if you're working with a coach every day, which some sports that I work in are like that, then you would write out what were the corrections that you were given. Or was there something that you learned on your own? What was an aha moment for you? What's something that you learned that you need to make sure you implement into your training or into your competition going forward? So that's kind of what I would put there. Do you have any additions to the what I learned section?
No, I like it. The specific thing you're pointing on is if you don't write it down, you won't remember it. The key is on the what what I learned section in the performance analysis, sometimes you learn something, you don't know how to write it in a maybe productive way. It's like, well, it's going to sound negative. That's fine because we're learning from it. Right?
Could you write, I need to, and then the solution is there?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know the solution. Just say, look, I'm having slow starts. I don't know how to fix it, and I need to find a way to fix it. So the imprint might be, well, they don't start well. But if I write it down, what does it do? It puts me in perspective trying to search for the solution. To me, that's the important
But is that, would that also potentially be able to go in the I'm looking for a solution to section as well?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
It would. You'd probably be more detail-oriented, what I learned. Uh-huh. The other one would be more, I have no idea. I want to go.
Yeah.
This is a recurring issue. In that case, you want the solution analysis to be written in a productive way. Uh-huh. If I don't know how to write in a productive way, so I look at the what I learned section as the one section that it can sound a little negative just so I get it across so I can start working with the right person to help me with it. The solution analysis one is a recurring issue to where, okay, I want to word that forward thinking. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm looking for a solution to consistently doing X, on a regular basis, right? As opposed to, I'm looking for a solution not to do. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't want to do that. We want to make it to where it's productive. So for me, it'd be like, I'm looking for a solution to having long string of 10s on a consistent basis. Yeah. Boom. If I can't have a long string of 10s, then it's going to be hard for me
as a
rifle shooter to have a good score. Okay. So what's the imprint though? Long string of 10s. Even though I'm not doing it, I phrase it in a way to where I'm imprinting that I'm doing it. Now I just need to go find a solution to make it actually happen.
I think if at all possible, word things as positively as you can. If you can't find a way to communicate it correctly, but you need to notate it, then the what I learned today would be the section in order to do that. On the what I did well today, then you're really spelling out and writing more journal-like. It's complete sentences and paragraphs. We give the advice of giving a paragraph per success. So if you had something that went really well, you would spend an entire paragraph describing it. It wouldn't just be, I had good shots today. That doesn't, there's no imprint there. You can't even picture what's good mean and how, why, what happened. So you want to start with today, so then when you're reading it back, it's like, it's happening now. And it's actually in the right time frame. Okay. So today, and then you go into a full sentence, very descriptive, using detailed words and words that evoke emotion, because your emotion impacts your imprint. So the more emotional it is, the more you can picture it, the more vivid it is, the better the imprint, and everybody succeeds in this whole scenario, and you feel great, and all the things are awesome, and you want to read it back again. And so then before you go to another tournament or competition or match or whatever, you can grab your journal, go back to your what went well sections, and build up your self-image before you compete.
Well said.
Elite performers focus on what they should do. Others focus on what happened. How do I keep myself from feeling like I'm focusing on what I think should have happened?
So change what's important for you to think about. Most of us think it's important about what happened to us when we really should be looking at how we should respond to what happened to us. So elite performers are doing a good job of focusing on what they need to do from what happened, moving forward, not dwelling on what happened and why it happened. So a lot of people that you work with that you struggle, they're probably getting their own way a lot. And it's like, well, why can't I just not get out of my way? Because you're probably result-oriented too much, and you're probably looking at why you're not as successful as you want, therefore focusing on the problem, and therefore you're imprinting that what? It's like you to have a problem. Instead of being more solution-oriented and forward-thinking in that.
I think a lot of people that I work with, they worry about how well they do because they worry about what other people are going to think of them. And so there's a lot of that internal, I have to succeed in order for other people to find me a valuable teammate, or for it to be worth it for my family to invest so much time, energy, effort, and money into my pursuits. And then they worry way too much about what other people think. And so then they're off balance.
Final question. I've come runner-up the last 5 years in my international competition, and I'm starting to get defeated. I love my sport, but I just don't know if I can win the big one. How can I stay motivated, or is it time for me to retire?
Oh, depending what sport you're in. I just thought about that. There's a individual I met years ago. This is like 15, 18 years ago. And he dominated his sport. So it was action pistol. And this individual wanted to be the dominant shooter in the sport long term. Right? We also know another guy that competed in the same sport that he got really good, won the major events within a 3-year period, and then said, I'm done, let somebody else win. So if you run against, and you're just in the time period of the GOAT in your sport, and you have to be runner-up, and this person is just better than you are, then, and this might be a rare case, then I think you're looking at the situation where, well, I don't know if it's time to retire or not. What if the other guy retires? Now you're the top one. So there's a lot of situational things you would have in that one. But it might be referring to, no, it's just I'm getting beat by different people and I just can't get over the hump of succeeding. So it's like I'm really good, but not good enough to convince myself I'm winning. To me, that would be a self-image thing. In that case, I would definitely wouldn't retire. I would be working on my self-image to be champion, not runner-up. What say you about that?
I think the past doesn't dictate the future. So how well you did yesterday doesn't automatically determine how well you're going to do tomorrow. I think it's an indicator of what you've been doing, but I think you need to look at, is there anything I need to change, improve, or enhance about my training or about myself or about my equipment or my coaching or whatever in order to get to that next level. So just make sure that you're dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's. As long as you have a burning desire to do it, I don't see a reason to stop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then how old is this individual? How long have they been competing?
Right.
What's the age group? If they're 36 and they're a tennis player, then that they're probably at the end of the run. But if you're 36 and you're a golfer, you probably still have several years still to go. So I think there's some unknowns that we probably need to know more about this individual, what sport they're in, and their age and where they are in their peak. I mean, are you still in your prime? Are you well past your prime? And were you an early bloomer and you've been successful early on, and now it's like I'm in my mid-20s and I'm thinking this isn't going to happen. I'm like, well, wait a minute, but you were a phenom early on. You had a lot of great success, and now it's just you're with the big boys, and here you are. You're just at a point to where if I can overcome this, man, what would the next 5-10 years be like? Well,
and then the word that I hung on to was runner-up, which, so in my world, that means you're pretty close, right? So if you're runner-up, you're in the top 5. In pageantry anyways. And so I started thinking about, okay, in pageant, if you're runner up 4 or 5 years in a row, I think you got to reevaluate. Why am I doing this? What's my why? Then if I want it bad enough, why not go back? Because you're so close. And so I think one of the things that we teach in With Winning in Mind talks about it is on the goal setting system is, stay the course to the end, never give up, but you can trade up. And so you can't quit, but you can replace your goal with one that matters more to you. So if you don't have something that matters even more than this goal, then stick with it, because otherwise that would be quitting.
Yeah. And I think there's also the timeline. What's the timeline the person's had? If they're at the end of their timeline and it just wasn't meant to be, then we can accept I've done everything I need to be. But if I'm sitting there thinking, well, maybe I need to end this even though I didn't set a timeline, probably need to go back and readdress that. Say, look, how much longer do I want to do this? What are the obstacles standing in my way to be number one? And is there things can I turn these obstacles into opportunities to propel me to be number one? If you can do that, then it's worth staying the course. But if you're runner up to, let's say, the GOAT in your sport, that could be one of those situational things where, okay, how am I going to beat that individual? But we've seen that time and time where, okay, this person can't beat this person, and then all of a sudden, a couple years later, roles switch, and they finally beat them. I remember, Andy Murray was one of the best tennis players in the world, but he just couldn't get over the hump to win one of the majors. And he finally broke through, And so what if he decided, this isn't going to happen? It would have been sad because he had a lot of success after he got through that first one. So I think there's a lot of unknowns here, but the main thing is that if you're looking at your situation, understand, do I have a primary goal? Do I have a timeline? Do I have my why? And have I been following my plan that I set forth? If you address those and you find out, well, I don't have this or I haven't followed this, then we need to reassess and then move forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for submitting questions. If you would like to submit questions for us to do this again, you can email them to me, heather@mentalmanagement.com. Just put podcast question, and I'm happy to collect those. And then Troy and I can do this again in the future. If you're not a Patreon member, I highly recommend that you join our Patreon channel. We will be diving into some more how-tos regarding some of these questions. How do we build our self-image? How do we effectively keep a journal? Things like that we're going to be talking about for our members who are silver and gold level. So we hope that you'll join us. Like this if you do, share it with a friend. Thank you so much for your time.